Hello everyone, in this playlist we will cover AWS from scratch. If you want to learn AWS from basic to advanced levels, make sure to watch all the videos in this playlist. This is day 3 of the series. In this video, we will discuss the EC2 instance in detail. EC2 is one of the most widely used and popular services provided by AWS. Here, you will learn both the theory and practical aspects of EC2. By the end of the video, you will understand what EC2 is and why it is used, how to create and connect to an EC2 instance, how to deploy an application, like a website, on an EC2 instance, how to access this instance from the outside world. You will find this session interesting because it marks the first application you will deploy on an EC2 instance. Let's start with the theory part. What is an EC2 instance? The term EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. Compute refers to requesting AWS to provide computing services, such as a combination of RAM, CPU, and storage. Essentially, you are asking for a virtual server. For those unfamiliar with this term virtual server, imagine you have a PC with its own physical server which has resources like RAM, CPU, storage. If these resources are insufficient, instead of buying new hardware, you can use a server from a cloud provider like AWS. This server behaves like a physical server, but runs through the internet, saving you the cost and effort of setting up new hardware. Cloud. AWS is a public cloud platform, which is why the term cloud is used in its name. Elastic. In AWS, you may note that there are multiple terms as same prefix elastic says that it has the ability to stretch or shrink resources based on demand. In AWS, it refers to resources like storage or computing power that can be adjusted, which means we can increase when you need more or reduce when you need less. Now we are going to discuss regions and availability zones in AWS. Regions refer to AWS's data centers located across the world, in places like India, the US, and many others. These global locations are called regions. For example, you can request AWS to provide an EC2 instance in India, or even in a specific region within India. Let's say you are working for a European client, and they want their data to be as close to them as possible. In that case, you would need to create an EC2 instance in a European region. This ensures that requests don't take a lot of time to travel from one region to another, especially if the servers are far apart. Availability zones. Within each region, AWS does not rely on a single data center or zone. Instead, it has multiple data centers in different locations within the same region. These are called availability zones. For example, imagine you are running a website hosted in the Mumbai region. If you deploy your application in 2 availability zones within Mumbai and one zone experiences a failure, the other zone will automatically take over. However, if you deploy it in just one availability zone and it fails, your website will go offline because there is no backup in another zone. It is essential to explicitly deploy applications in multiple availability zones to ensure high availability and fault tolerance. Let's move on to the practical session. In this practical session, we will host this website for an instance. However, EC2 is not limited to hosting websites. It can do much more. The possibilities are endless with this powerful cloud tool. Log in to your AWS account. This was the thing I was talking about. You will see a list of regions where AWS has data centers. For instance, you can choose to create an instance in Mumbai, Singapore, or London. It's up to you. Keep in mind that creating an instance far from your actual region may result in delayed processing and responses. Choose a region where you want to set up your virtual server. Here I am choosing Mumbai, and now go for EC2 instance. If not there, search for it. Some of these terms are new to you. At this point of time, we will cover this in future videos. Here you can see the various availability zones in Mumbai. To begin the practical session, we will host our website on an EC2 instance. Hosting means running our website on a virtual server. Start by clicking the Instances, and then click on the Launch Instance button. After watching this video, try to create an instance on your own. When prompted, provide a name for the instance. For example, I am naming it Code Matrix. Now let's discuss selecting the operating system, OS, for your EC2 instance. Just like your laptop needs an OS to run software, a virtual server, EC2 instance, also needs an OS to run applications. Also important to note that whenever you want to talk to your server to manage or control your software running on it, you need to connect to it. These can be done using different methods depending on the OS of your computer. So unless you are a Mac user, don't use Mac OS. Cause it specifically for an Apple ecosystem, But if you are a Windows user, you can choose Linux OS or Ubuntu OS and vice versa, and mostly Linux OS or Ubuntu is best for hosting websites and apps. It is cheaper and support most tools. However, use Windows if your app needs a Windows-specific tools like MS SQL, etc. Here I chose AWS Linux OS for hosting our website. Once you choose it, AWS asks which version you want. Always select the free tier eligible version to avoid unnecessary charges. The free tier allows you to use EC2 for 12 months, with a limit of 750 hours per month. If you exceed this limit or create additional instances, AWS will charge you accordingly. Details are mentioned here clearly, you can read it if you want. Further, our instance will run 24/7 until we explicitly stop it. So whenever you don't want to run, just shut down, it's a good practice. Also, if you want to run 2 or 3 instances at the same time, you want to manage the time accordingly. Always make sure you don't exit the time limit. Explore other options if needed, but remember that these are charged based on the selected instance type. There is T2 large, which has 4 CPU power, 16 GB memory, good for large applications requiring more CPU and memory. Then you have key pair login, which is the most important part. Think of a key pair as a kind of password, but it works differently. Let me explain. A key pair is a combination of 2 special keys used for security. One is a private key, and the other is a public key. Private key. This is a secret file that stays on your computer. You download it when you create a key pair instance. We will see this in a few minutes. Public key. This is stored on the EC2 instance in the cloud. These 2 keys work together to allow only you, or someone with the private key, to connect to the instance. How does it work? When you try to connect to the EC2 instance, your computer sends a message using the private key you have. The EC2 instance checks the message using its public key. If the public and private keys match, you are allowed to log in. If not, access is denied. This process is called public key cryptography. No one else has your private key unless you share it, so please keep it safe and don't share it with others. Now, I don't have any existing key pair, so I chose to create a new one. But if you already have one, you can choose that. If you want to create a new key pair, click Create New Pair. You may wonder why we need to name the key pair. The name is not for the public or private key itself. It is actually for AWS to identify the key pair when you have multiple key pairs. I typed AWS code matrix. These are encryption methods used for security purposes. It is recommended to use RSA because it's supported everywhere. The PEM file is the private key file I mentioned earlier. The .ppk file is also a private key file, but it's used specifically for Windows with software like PuTTY to connect to your instance. For those unfamiliar with this process, Mac Linux users, you can use the terminal to connect to the instance. Windows users, you need external tools like PuTTY or MobaXterm to connect to the instance. If you're using such software to connect to the instance, you should enable the relevant options. Otherwise, you can leave it as it is. I will connect through the MobaXterm tool, so I'm keeping it as it is. Click Create Key Pair, and you will see a PEM file downloaded. This is your private key. Here we will have network settings, which we are not going to cover today. Click Edit and check if auto-assigned public IP is enabled or not. Under Type, Source Type, and check if SSH and Anywhere are enabled. This SSH option is used to securely log into your account. Anywhere means we can connect to our instance from anywhere. If you want to allow access only from your laptop, use My IP and set it accordingly. Make sure to add a security group, change the type to HTTP, and set the source this IPv4 address. These settings determine who can access your website. Now click on Launch Instance. It will take a while, and congratulations, you have successfully created an EC2 instance. Now open a new tab and search for MobaXterm. Click on the first link and download the free version. Choose the installer edition. Once it's downloaded as a zip file, extract it by right-clicking on the file. You'll see the extraction options. Next, open the extracted folder and run the installer. Follow the on-screen steps to install MobaXterm. Once installed, open MobaXterm. Go to Sessions. Here, we want to use SSH because it's secure and encrypted. This is used to connect to the instance, especially for Linux-based ones. Other options like FTP or RDP are used for specific tasks like file transferring and more. Now, let's proceed with SSH. It will ask for the remote host. Think of this as the address of the instance you've created. To get this address, go to the instance you created, then locate the instance ID. Inside, you'll find a public address. This is like a phone number or address for your EC2 instance on the internet. To connect to the instance, you need to dial this number using tools like MobaXterm. AWS assigns a new public IP address every time you restart the instance. Copy this IP address and paste it into the required field. It will also ask for a username. The username depends on the type of Linux OS you selected. If you chose Amazon Linux, use EC2 user. If you chose Ubuntu, use Ubuntu. For other distributions, check the official documentation. Click on Advanced Shell Settings and then click on the Private Key option. Browse for the .pem file you downloaded when creating the key pair. Once added, click the OK button. A pop-up will appear. Accept it. And successfully you're connected to your instance. Now you have to execute a set of commands to host our website. The commands you can see on the screen, just follow them. This command switches you to the root user, giving you administrative privileges to install and configure software on the EC2 instance. This updates all the installed packages to their latest versions, ensuring the system is up to date and secure. And this, your EC2 instance, is like a blank computer. You need to install web servers, like Apache, or programming environments, like Python, Node.js, to make it ready to host your website. So we installing Apache. This command navigates to the directory where the website files are stored. Make sure the main file must be named as index.html because it's the default file that gets rendered. Note that you can also upload your mutable files using a set of commands, but here I am creating the file through the VI editor. Here I'll create an index.html file using the VI editor. Type vi index.html. Note that if the file doesn't exist, it will create a new one. If the file already exists, it will open in edit mode, allowing you to modify or delete the content. Press I to enter insert mode, then write code or paste by right-clicking. Once done, press escape and type :WQ to save and exit. If you want to view your HTML file, you can use the catindex.html command. Finally, start the Apache server by typing service httpd start. This makes your server live and accessible. Now you're good to go. Copy the public IP address of your instance and open it in a new tab with http://. You can view the website you have hosted. That's it for today. Remember to shut down or terminate the instance after learning to avoid extra charges. That's it for today. And if you felt this video was helpful, please hit that like button that motivates me to do better, and don't forget to subscribe our channel.